responsible. Meanwhile, the national system has arrested at least one militia leader. You want those cases to be able to be made there, but you have the challenge in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a very weak state without the ability to control some parts of its own territory with a military that's been put together by integrating former militia groups, etc., some of whom are out of control. And so, how do you strengthen that system up on the ground? The government's recently suggested the establishment of specialized chambers to try these serious cases.
And even the Cambodia model?
Well, it's a little like that. It's probably closer to Cambodia, but it's perhaps closer to Bosnia. The ICTY, which dealt with senior commanders like Mladic or Karadzic or Milosevic, in the case of the former Yugoslavia, was, in the course of being asked to close and finish its work, was encouraged to send cases back. And in Bosnia, that meant establishing a state court war crimes chamber with national judges, but also some international judges that were there for a period of time and helped to create greater independence. People were distrustful that somebody came from a different ethnic group, and if you have internationals in there in terms of both their experience and expertise, but also just in terms of the perception that these people don't have a side in this particular conflict, that can make the judicial system more credible to people. And you can bring in international assistance to help with the investigation, with the forensics, with the DNA, all these kinds of things. But then in that model, the internationals are now being phased out. They were going to be phased out again in 2009. 6 of them have been extended to 2012, but then that'll be the end of that. And so, but that's left a stronger system there on an ongoing basis than there beforehand. And that's still in a place where there's been an international court, the ICTY, prosecuting, there are 150 people in The Hague. There's still hundreds of others that are very high level that need to be prosecuted in other courts. So that kind of thing in the Democratic Republic of Congo, particularly done at the very grassroots level, in their system, not establishing anything big and grand and international, but do have good people from the international community that are in there. They may have to help fix up the court buildings because there's holes in the roof, or there's not the facilities to do things, or there's not copiers of communication, etc. There will be resources that need to be provided, but that will help strengthen the justice system. And when the internationals leave, there will be a legacy on the ground, and all of the international courts that have done things from a distance all get faulted. Well, so you check in, you check out. What's left,
and you're way over there.
You're way over there, and now you're off to deal with something else.
Yes.
And so this is an important part of international justice. The challenge here in the ICC, of course, is the ICC has 18 judges and a prosecutor and defense and victims' issues and protection and all of these kinds of things in cases that have to be investigated at thousands of miles from the seat of the court. So it has countries that are paying dues, the 114 that have joined, and all of them are in financial challenging situations where budgets are under pressure and their domestic needs, and so there's pressure not to spend more money on this court. People talking about sort of zero nominal growth, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so does this court have the resources to become a development agency? Not really. It can't go out and there are countries that say, why can't you? Why can't you do this, etc. But the point is, it's not something, it can work with it, but it's not the place where that should be done. On the other hand, the United States, the European Union, individual states have development programs for rule of law. And so what we want to do is to try to connect that, both for parties and non-parties, that we work together, coordinating with the ICC, to help strengthen the judicial systems on the ground, not with the resources of the ICC, but with the funds that are the donor countries, as part of development assistance, are now dedicating to more general rule of law projects. Those are important, but there needs to be a specific area that focuses on this challenging area of atrocity crime.
Yes.
Because it's not the same, to be frank. I mean, there's some aspects of it the same, but if if you're dealing with someone who's a militia leader, or someone who's a military leader, or someone who's a police official, who's responsible for the crime, that's an entirely different thing than dealing with a local.
This is not shoplifting.
Yeah, this is not shoplifting. I mean, these people have protections. They have networks. They can intimidate.
They're powerful.
They can pull strings. They can keep. They can corrupt processes, etc. They can get information about who's cooperating against them and come after those folks. And then you've got questions about how you prove these cases, which is often more complicated. You don't have. He shot whom in this particular place. You're often prosecuting a guy who wasn't there, whose group did the crime.
And is the one who's accountable.
He's accountable, but how do you prove he's accountable?
Yes.
And you don't have a written order that says go kill this person, and you have to connect that together. And there are legal bases for doing that, but there's also kind of the factual way you have to try through insider witnesses and other things to tie it together. I mean, it's most analogous to sort of organized crime in kinds of cases where you've got the mafia don that's behind it all, but you can't get to him without sort of working the chain and developing it. So these are more challenging kind of cases, not to mention the fact that you've got mass killings, forensic challenges of digging up mass graves, you've got gender violence, brutal cases of rape, and people who, and one of the sad aspects of the gender violence is it's often a difficult crime to deal with.